Well, one of the big questions that comes up when we talk about decluttering, as I have in so many videos, is how do you distribute your keepsakes and your treasures to your children? Well, we're going to talk about some great ways to do that coming up next. Hi everybody, my name is Dee Burks and this is Retirement Rescue, where we talk about how to make money, save money, and live well in retirement. Well, as you declutter your house and as you downsize from being an empty nester to being a pre-retiree to then being a retiree, there are things in your home that are heirlooms, that are objects from your family that mean something to you. And one of the big questions is, well, how do you distribute those to your children? Well, one of the first things you really want to think about before you start distributing to your kids is they are not going to treasure the same things you treasure. And that's okay. They don't have the same emotional attachment that you do. Some of your kids may want some things, some may want nothing. And it's really important for you to manage your expectations. Don't expect that your kids are going to have the same emotional investment in certain items that you do. So before you even get started trying to distribute things to your kids, you really want to think about yourself and understand that y'all are all different people. And your kids may not want those things you think are really valuable. Your kids may not want anything. That is one thing that rarely occurs to parents, is that they may get to the end of their life and have a house full of things they consider to be treasures, and their kids don't want any of it. That is happening a lot. So you really want to be prepared for that. It's just stuff. These items that you treasure are not you. But yet sometimes when we try to give those things to people and they don't seem to treasure them like we did, we get offended. It's somehow like we're projecting ourselves into that object and they're rejecting us. They're not rejecting us. They just don't want the stuff. So one of the very first things to do before you even start talking to your kids or other family members about things you want to distribute to them is manage your own expectations. Understand it's just stuff. And if no one's going to want it, better you find out now than later. Because then you can address it, get rid of it, do things with it if they don't want it. And one of the big things that we all do as parents is we forget to ask our kids if they even want things. So if you are getting ready to distribute things to your children, that's your first step. Ask them what they want and why. They may have emotional attachments to things that you really kind of consider not that valuable. But everyone in your household has had a different experience growing up in that household, having experiences, having memories. Some of them may absolutely want those family heirlooms. They want to keep them in the family and pass them along. Others may not. And for a lot of people, you probably have more than one child. So figuring out how to do that, quote, fairly is a whole nother issue. And one that I want to address. The idea of fair, there is no such thing as fair, especially when you're talking about various objects. They all have a different value. People have different memories associated with them. Some people may want one thing. Some people may think it's trash. There is no fair. And what seems, quote, fair to you may seem completely unfair to your children. So getting rid of the idea that this is somehow going to be fair is actually a good thing. It allows your children to choose and do things that are fair to them rather than going by your own sense of, quote, fair. But if you're already downsizing and decluttering, this is a great time to start distributing some of those items. Decluttering is a process. And giving your things to family members is also a process. It doesn't have to happen all at once. But we all at some point have to face the reality that unless we die suddenly, our retirement and eventual decline, we all get there, happens over time. You may go from your own household to maybe an apartment, to maybe assisted living, to maybe full retirement home. And every time one of those steps happens, you will be getting rid of more things. This is why it's great to start early in your retirement. Go ahead and allow your children to be enjoying those things as adults in their homes with their children while you enjoy your retirement and are unencumbered by all the things. Now, there are numerous ways that you can distribute items. And one of the easiest is to actually have your children all in your home and allow them to choose. Now, then you may want them to go ahead and take the items at that time, or you may want to just put their name on that item should something happen to you to be sure they will get it. Once you decide who gets what, and honestly, the method you use to go about it is completely up to you. Maybe you have your children draw straws to see who picks first. Maybe you have them go around and place dots on things they want, and if several people place a dot on the same item, you have a discussion about who's going to get it. Maybe you have them draw numbers and have everyone pick an item, and then go backwards, have everyone pick another item. Whatever method you choose is going to be right for you. If your children are spread across the country or across the world, perhaps you will send them a list of items, of possibilities, of things they may want should something happen to you. And they can choose from that list. They don't have to be physically present. One of the things I would do is, once you have things divided up among your children, to write that list down. Be sure everyone gets a copy and agrees on it. And then put that list with your will. That way everyone's in agreement. Doing this ahead of time is way easier than when something happens. It eliminates a lot of the tension and issues, arguing, decision making. It takes a load off everyone's mind, and it will help you declutter some of those things that need to stay in the family, but it's time for them to move on to your children. And one of the things I always tell people when they are distributing things from their home or from their estate or whatever the situation is, one of the best gifts you can give your children is your approval for them to do whatever they want to or whatever they think is appropriate with the items you give them. One of the reasons so much of us have clutter in our homes is that we have things from other family members who have passed on. And the guilt about getting rid of those things keeps us from doing so, even when they're long past any usefulness. So giving your children permission to use their own judgment is a fabulous gift. And honestly, at this point, your children are adults. They need to be able to use their own judgment and not feel the least little bit of guilt about it. Like I said at the beginning, there's no such thing as fair, especially when you're distributing family heirlooms. They all have a different intrinsic value. They all have a different emotional value. But addressing these things and communicating about these things is the best way to avoid hurt feelings and arguments at a time when emotions are high. When someone in the family passes unexpectedly, and I'm sure some of you have witnessed this, emotions are running high. And when there are arguments, even about little things that seem completely insignificant, maybe it's a colander your grandmother had and she fixed spaghetti in that colander every Saturday for the family, and now you have kids who are grown in their 50s and 60s arguing over a colander. You really don't want that situation to arise, but it can when emotions are high. So dealing with these things, having the conversations, distributing things in the most equitable way you can is the best thing you can do to ensure, number one, those items go to the people who really cherish them, and to let your kids know that you trust their judgment going forward. It is up to them what happens to those things after you're gone. Now, while it may seem a little bit sad to let some of those family heirlooms go because you have enjoyed them, let me tell you what, there is something incredibly joyful about seeing those items in the home of your children and watching them share those with the next generation. That's what they're for. That's why you treasured them. That is a wonderful gift. Now, if you've enjoyed this video, please click subscribe, and I'll see you next time.